They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But let me tell you, mine was served piping hot at a family dinner table on Thanksgiving 2024, with a side of humble pie that my sister-in-law choked on. My name is Celestine Hartwell. I'm 34 years old. And this is the story of how one evening changed everything in my family forever. Picture this. November 28th, 2024. Thanksgiving at my mother-in-law Patricia's sprawling estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. 23 family members gathered around a table that probably cost more than my first car. Crystal chandeliers, fine china, the works. And there I was, walking in wearing what I thought was a stunning emerald green ensemble, a flowing midi dress with asymmetrical cuts and hand-embroidered details that took me 3 weeks to perfect. The moment I stepped through those mahogany doors, the whispers started. Then came the snickers. And finally, the outright mockery that would seal their fate. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all really began. Backstory: I married into the Hartwell family 6 years ago, on a sunny afternoon in May 2018. My husband, Marcus, was everything I'd ever dreamed of. Kind, supportive, and blissfully oblivious to how his family treated me like I was wearing a scarlet letter. See, the Hartwells weren't just wealthy. They were old money wealthy. The kind of family that has a Wikipedia page and ancestors who signed important documents in the 1700s. I, on the other hand, grew up in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Queens with my single mother who worked 3 jobs. I put myself through Fashion Institute of Technology, working nights at a diner and weekends at a fabric store. Fashion wasn't just my passion. It was my escape, my voice, my everything. When I met Marcus at a gallery opening in Soho in 2017, I was working as a junior designer for a small boutique brand. He didn't care about my background. His family, however, that was a different story entirely. His mother, Patricia Hartwell, 62, was the matriarch of the family, a former socialite who spent her days organizing charity galas and her evenings reminding everyone of their place in the social hierarchy. Then there was Marcus's older brother, Jonathan, a hedge fund manager who wore his arrogance like a custom-tailored suit. But the real thorn in my side was Jonathan's wife, Vivian Hartwell. Vivian. Just saying her name makes my jaw clench. She was 36, a former pageant queen from Charleston who married into the family 2 years before I did. With her platinum blonde hair, designer everything, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes, she'd made it her personal mission to remind me that I didn't belong. At every family gathering, every holiday, every single opportunity, she'd find a way to diminish me. "Oh, Celestine, you shop at Zara. How practical," she'd say with that syrupy sweet tone that dripped with venom. Or my personal favorite, "You actually made that yourself?" How quaint. It's adorable when people try. For years, I bit my tongue. Marcus would tell me to ignore her, that she was just insecure. His mother would brush it off as Vivian's sense of humor. Even his sister, Margot, who was actually decent to me, would just shrug and say, "That's just how Viv is." But something changed in 2024. Maybe it was turning 34 and realizing life was too short to be small. Maybe it was the success I'd been quietly building. Or maybe I was just tired of being the punching bag at every family function. The turning point in March 2024, something extraordinary happened. After years of designing on the side, working 16-hour days while maintaining my day job, I launched my own fashion line. I called it Essence by Celestine. I'd saved every penny, maxed out one credit card, and poured my entire soul into a collection of 15 pieces that represented everything I'd ever wanted to say through fabric and thread. I didn't tell the Hartwells. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted something that was mine, untouched by their judgment and scrutiny. The collection launched online on March 15th, 2024. I expected maybe a few sales, some nice comments from friends. What I got was beyond my wildest dreams. Within a week, a fashion blogger with 800,000 followers spotted one of my pieces on a customer's Instagram and featured it. "Who is this designer?" she wrote. "This is the kind of innovative, bold work we should be celebrating." By April, I'd been featured in 3 fashion magazines. By June, I had a waiting list of over 2,000 people. By September, my designs were being worn by a Grammy-nominated singer who I'd idolized since college. She wore my sapphire blue asymmetrical gown to an awards show, and the internet went crazy trying to figure out who designed it. But I kept it quiet. I used a business alias, handled everything online, and lived this beautiful double life. To the Hartwells, I was still just Celestine, the girl from Queens who married up and didn't quite fit in. To the fashion world, I was becoming someone they wanted to know. Marcus knew, of course. He was my biggest cheerleader, helping me pack orders at midnight and celebrating every milestone with cheap wine and expensive dreams. "When are you going to tell them?" He'd ask. "Soon," I'd always say. "When the time is right." The time became right on November 15th, 2024. When Vivienne made a comment that finally broke me, the catalyst was a pre-Thanksgiving family brunch at Patricia's house. Just the women, Patricia, Vivienne, Margot, Marcus's grandmother Eleanor, and me. We were supposedly planning the Thanksgiving menu, but really, it was just another opportunity for Vivienne to perform. She showed up wearing head-to-toe Chanel, a tweed suit that probably cost $8,000, pearls that had been in the family, and shoes that clicked authoritatively on the marble floors. I'd come from a morning meeting with a potential investor, dressed in one of my own designs, a soft rose-colored wrap dress with delicate pleating and a subtle shimmer woven into the fabric. I thought I looked professional and elegant. Vivienne took one look at me and laughed. Actually laughed. "Celestine, honey," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Did you make that dress yourself?" I can tell. There's something so homemade about it. You know, if you need help with your wardrobe, I'd be happy to take you shopping. Somewhere with actual designers. The room went silent. Margot looked uncomfortable. Patricia just sipped her mimosa. Eleanor, bless her, looked annoyed but didn't say anything. Something inside me snapped. Not with anger, but with clarity. "That's so kind of you to offer, Vivienne," I said with a smile that matched hers for sweetness. "But I'm actually quite happy with my wardrobe choices." "Are you, though?" she pressed, clearly enjoying herself. "Because Marcus deserves a wife who looks the part. You represent the Hartwell name now, whether you like it or not. And that," she gestured at my dress with a perfectly manicured hand, "is not it." I could have said something then. I could have told her that this homemade dress was from my collection that was being featured in Vogue's December issue. That the actual designers she mentioned were reaching out to ME for collaborations. That while she spent Jonathan's money on labels, I was building an empire with my own hands. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled and said, "I'll keep that in mind for Thanksgiving. I'll make sure to wear something special." The plan: as soon as I got home, I knew exactly what I was going to do. For Thanksgiving, I was going to wear the crown jewel of my collection, a piece I'd been saving for New York Fashion Week in February 2025. It was an emerald green masterpiece that had taken me 6 months to design and 3 weeks to execute. The color was inspired by the forests I used to escape to as a child when Queens felt too small and too loud. The silhouette was modern yet timeless, a midi-length dress with an asymmetrical neckline that draped elegantly over one shoulder. The fabric was a custom-dyed silk blend that caught the light like water, but the real magic was in the details. Hand-embroidered throughout the dress were tiny scenes: a New York City skyline, a sewing machine, a woman with her arms raised in triumph. It was my story, literally woven into the fabric. Each stitch represented a late night, a dream, a moment of doubt overcome. The embroidery was done in thread that matched the green so perfectly that you could only see it in certain lights, like a secret message. Along the hem, in thread so fine you'd have to look closely to see it, I'd embroidered words: "She believed she could, so she did." This wasn't just a dress. It was my armor, my statement, my truth. I'd wear it to Thanksgiving dinner. I'd let them mock it, judge it, laugh at it. And then, at just the right moment, I'd let them know exactly who designed it. But I needed one more element to make this perfect. I needed proof that would be undeniable. On November 20th, I got the email I'd been waiting for. Vogue's December issue was going to hit stands on November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving. The feature was 6 pages of my collection, including a full-page spread of the emerald dress, with an interview about my journey from Queens to emerging fashion designer. Perfect timing is something you can't plan for. Sometimes the universe just hands you the ammunition you need. I had 10 copies of the magazine delivered to my apartment on November 26th. I placed one in my bag, ready for Thanksgiving. Marcus looked at me that morning like he knew I was up to something. "Whatever you're planning," he said with a grin, "I'm here for it." Thanksgiving Day, November 28th, 2024, dawned cold and crisp. Perfect sweater weather. or in my case, perfect revenge weather. I spent extra time getting ready that morning. The moment we stepped through the door, I heard it. That subtle shift in conversation, the pause, the whispers. Patricia was in the foyer, greeting guests in her signature pearl gray suit. "Celestine, dear," she said, her eyes scanning my dress with barely concealed distaste. "That's certainly a choice." "Thank you, Patricia," I said warmly. I thought the occasion called for something special. We moved into the great room where everyone was gathering for pre-dinner cocktails. The room was decorated like something from a magazine. Fall colors, elegant flower arrangements, a bar with a bartender in a bow tie. Very Hartwell. I felt eyes on me immediately. Margot came over first, genuine warmth in her greeting. "You look beautiful, Celestine." "That color is stunning on you." "Thank you, Margot." "That means a lot." Then came the others. Uncle Richard and Aunt Constance with their barely concealed smirks. Cousin Bradley and his wife whispering behind their champagne flutes. And then, like a shark smelling blood, Vivian. She was wearing Dior, a cream-colored sheath dress with a matching jacket. Probably $6,000 worth of elegance. Her smile was predatory as she approached with Jonathan in tow. "Celestine," she exclaimed, air-kissing near my cheeks. "What an interesting dress. Did you make this one too?" The nearby conversations quieted. This was entertainment for them. "I did, actually," I said pleasantly. She circled me slowly like a judge at a dog show. I can tell. There's something so DIY about it. The stitching here," she pointed to the embroidery. "It's a bit uneven, isn't it?" That embroidery had taken me 40 hours to perfect. Each stitch was deliberate, precise, purposeful. "I think it adds character," I replied. "Character," she repeated, then laughed. "Is that what we're calling it?" She turned to the group. "You know, it's sweet that Celestine still sews her own clothes. Like a little hobby. Jonathan, remember when I used to scrapbook?" "It's kind of like that," Jonathan chuckled dutifully. Others joined in with polite laughter. "The color, though," Vivian continued, warming to her subject. "Green for Thanksgiving? That's more of a Christmas color, sweetie. And this cut," she gestured at the asymmetrical neckline. "It's a bit avant-garde for a family dinner, don't you think? We're not at some hipster art show in Brooklyn." More laughs. I caught Marcus tensing beside me, ready to defend me, but I touched his arm gently. "Not yet. You know what this reminds me of?" Vivian was on a roll now. Those Project Runway contestants who try too hard to be innovative and end up making something unwearable. Bless your heart for trying, Celestine, but maybe stick to the basics. A nice black dress is always appropriate. I could text you the name of my personal shopper. She works miracles. That won't be necessary, I said calmly. Oh, I insist. Because, honey, she gestured at my dress again. This is just not it. The fabric is pulling here, the embroidery is, well, messy, and the whole thing just screams, I tried. Which is adorable, really. But you're a Hartwell now. There are standards. Patricia chose this moment to chime in from across the room. Vivian does have a point, Celestine. Presentation is important in this family. Perhaps something more traditional next time? I felt every eye in the room on me. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. Watching me be put in my place reminded that I'd never quite measure up to their standards of sophistication and class. I smiled. A real smile this time. You know what? You're absolutely right, Vivian. Standards are important. So let me ask you something. What do you know about the current fashion landscape? Who are the emerging designers making waves right now? She blinked, thrown off by the question. Well, I follow fashion. I have subscriptions to all the magazines. Do you read them? Of course Then you've probably seen the December issue of Vogue. It came out yesterday. I reached into my bag and pulled out the magazine. The cover featured a famous actress in a stunning red gown. I held it up for everyone to see. Anyone else get their copy yet? I asked the room. A few people nodded. Vivian's smile was starting to falter. She didn't know where this was going, but she sensed danger. I opened the magazine to the feature, pages 89 through 94. There, in glossy, undeniable print, was my collection. And there, on page 91, taking up the entire page, was the emerald green dress I was wearing. The same dress Vivian had just spent 10 minutes mocking. This is interesting, I said conversationally. This DIY, messy, unwearable dress seems to have caught Vogue's attention. They called it, let me read this exactly, a stunning example of innovative design meeting emotional storytelling. Celestine Hartwell's work represents a new generation of designers who aren't afraid to break conventions while honoring the craft. The room had gone completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on Patricia's expensive Persian rug. That's not... Vivian started. Oh, but wait, there's more, I continued, flipping to page 89. Here's the profile. Celestine Hartwell, from Queens to the fashion elite. Should I read it out loud, or would you like to pass it around? I handed the magazine to Margot, who took it with wide eyes. She looked at the photos, then at me, then back at the photos. Celestine, this is incredible, she breathed. Thank you, Margot. The magazine began to circulate. I watched faces change as it moved from person to person. Shock, disbelief, embarrassment. Patricia's face had gone pale. Jonathan looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. And Vivian looked like she might actually cry. This can't be real, Vivian said weakly. You're not in vogue. You're not a designer. You work at some little boutique. I own 3 boutiques, actually, I corrected gently. In Soho, Brooklyn, and as of last month, one in Boston. Essence by Celestine. Perhaps you've heard of it? We've been getting quite a bit of press lately. Uncle Richard, who'd been studying the magazine, looked up. Wait, your Essence by Celestine? My daughter bought a dress from your collection last month. She said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever owned. She wore it to her engagement party. I remember that order, I said warmly. The lavender piece with the pearl details? I included a handwritten note with it. I hope she loved it. She did. She absolutely did. He looked at me with new respect. I had no idea you were family. Well, I said, glancing at Vivian, I wasn't sure the family wanted to know. The bartender chose that moment to announce that dinner was ready. Everyone began moving toward the dining room, but the energy had completely shifted. Instead of polite distance, people were approaching me with questions, compliments, genuine interest. The dinner. The seating arrangement had been carefully planned by Patricia, a long table with her at the head, Jonathan and Vivian to her right as the golden children, Marcus and me further down, appropriately distant from the center of power. But as we took our seats, something had changed. Conversations were directed at me. Margot's husband wanted to know about my design process. Aunt Constance asked about my business model. Even Patricia's mother, the 89-year-old Eleanor, who rarely spoke to anyone under 60, called down the table to ask if I could design something for her. Vivian sat in stony silence, pushing food around her plate. Jonathan kept glancing at his phone, probably wishing he could be anywhere else. Patricia made several attempts to redirect conversation to more appropriate topics. The charity gala she was planning, the new country club renovations, but people kept circling back to me. Tell us how you started, Uncle Richard's wife, Jennifer, asked. This is fascinating, so I did. I told them about growing up in Queens, about my mother who taught me that hard work and creativity could take you anywhere. About putting myself through fit, working multiple jobs, never giving up on my dream even when it seemed impossible. About the late nights, the failures, the tiny victories that built into something bigger. I told them about the first dress I ever sold, a simple black cocktail dress I designed for a friend's wedding. She'd paid me $200, and I'd cried because it was the first time someone valued my work enough to pay for it. I told them about launching Essence by Celestine with nothing but savings, hope, and a Shopify account. About the terror and exhilaration of putting my work out into the world. About the first celebrity who wore one of my pieces, and how I'd called my mother at 3 a.m. crying happy tears, and I told them about this dress, the emerald dress that represented everything I'd overcome. Each embroidered detail was a chapter of my story, hidden in plain sight. The embroidery you're seeing, I explained, it's not messy, it's intentional. Look closer. I stood and let people examine the work. Margot gasped when she realized the tiny scenes were actually images. This is a sewing machine. And is that the Queen's skyline? It is, I confirmed. And if you look along the hem, there's text. My mantra. She knelt down and read it aloud. She believed she could, so she did. Celestine, this is art. It's my story, I said simply. Every piece I design tells a story. I learned that fashion isn't about labels or price tags or fitting into someone else's idea of appropriate. It's about expressing who you are, unapologetically. I didn't look at Vivian when I said it, but I felt her flinch. Dinner continued, and the questions kept coming. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table, pride radiating from him. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, his family finally seeing what he'd always known. When dessert was served, Patricia finally spoke directly to me for the first time since the revelation. "Celestine," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Why didn't you tell us about your business endeavors?" The table quieted again. This was the question everyone had been wondering. I set down my fork and met her eyes. "Honestly, Patricia, I didn't think you'd care. For 6 years, I've been made to feel like I don't belong in this family. Like I'm not good enough, not sophisticated enough, not heartwell enough. Every gathering, every holiday, there's been a reminder that I married up and should be grateful for the privilege." Patricia opened her mouth to protest, but I continued. "I'm not saying this to be cruel. I'm stating facts. Vivian has made it her mission to belittle everything about me, my clothes, my background, my career, my choices. And while she was the most vocal, she wasn't the only one." I looked around the table. How many of you have made assumptions about who I am based on where I came from? How many of you dismissed me because I didn't grow up with country club memberships and debutante balls? Uncomfortable silence. I kept my success quiet because I wanted something that was mine. Something that couldn't be diminished or mocked or turned into another way to make me feel small. I built Essence by Celestine without the Hartwell name, without the connections, without any of the advantages this family takes for granted. I did it with talent, hard work, and determination. And you know what? It succeeded. Beyond my wildest dreams, it succeeded. I turned to Vivian, who was staring at her plate. "You spent the last 6 years telling me I needed to measure up to your standards, that I needed to dress better, be better, essentially become someone else to deserve my place in this family. But the truth is, Vivian, I never needed to measure up to you. I needed to measure up to myself. And I have." "I didn't mean," she started weakly. "Yes, you did," I said, not unkindly. "You meant every word. Every sideways comment, every backhanded compliment, every time you made me feel like I was less than. You meant all of it. And maybe you did it because you're insecure, or because putting others down makes you feel bigger, or for whatever reason that therapists get paid to unpack. But here's what I need you to understand. Your opinion of me, of my work, of my worth, it doesn't matter anymore. It never should have mattered." Tears were rolling down Vivian's cheeks now, her expensive makeup running. Jonathan put his arm around her, but he didn't look at me. He couldn't. I turned to Patricia. "I love Marcus. I love the life we've built together, but I won't continue to accept disrespect from this family. I've earned my place here, not through marriage, but through who I am and what I've accomplished. If you can't see that, if you can't respect that, then these gatherings are going to be pretty uncomfortable going forward." The aftermath. The dinner ended shortly after that. It was impossible to go back to polite small talk after everything that had been said. People began making excuses to leave. Early mornings, long drives, suddenly remembering other commitments. As Marcus and I were getting our coats, Margot pulled me aside. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears in her eyes. "I should have defended you more. I should have stood up to Viv, to Mom, to all of them. You deserved better from this family." "Thank you for saying that," I told her, hugging her. "It means more than you know." "I want to come to your studio," she said. "I want to see your work, support your business, actually get to know you without all the family politics. Would that be okay?" "I'd love that." Uncle Richard stopped us on the way out. "My daughter's wedding is in June. Would you be willing to design her dress? She'd be honored, and frankly, after seeing your work, so would I." I gave him my business card. "Have her call me. I'd be happy to talk." Even Aunt Constance, who'd never spoken more than 3 words to me, stopped to say, "You have real talent. I can see that now. I'm sorry it took so long." Patricia stood at the door, her composure cracking slightly. "Celestine," she said quietly, I hope you know that I never intended to make you feel unwelcome." "Intentions and impact are different things," I replied. "But I appreciate you saying that. Perhaps we could have lunch. Just the 2 of us? I'd like to understand your work better. And perhaps apologize more properly." I looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd like that," I told Patricia, "when you're ready." As we drove home, Marcus let out a long breath. That was the most satisfying thing I've ever witnessed. "You were magnificent." I was honest, I corrected. "There's a difference. What happens now?" "Now," I said, leaning back in my seat. We live our lives. I keep building my business, you keep being amazing, and we let the family figure out how they want to move forward. The ball's in their court. The revelation continues the next morning, November 29th. I woke up to 47 missed calls and over 200 text messages. The Vogue feature had officially hit social media, and people who'd been at the dinner were talking. Margot had posted a photo of us at dinner with the caption, "So proud to call this incredible designer my sister-in-law." Essence by Celestine is changing the game. Family first, Sharks support women, fashion designer. It had 12,000 likes and counting, but the most surprising message was from Vivian. It was long, sent at 4 a.m., and clearly written through tears. "Celestine, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. You were right about everything. I've spent the last 6 years being cruel to you because I felt threatened. You came from nothing and built something beautiful. I came from privilege and married into more privilege, and I've never created anything of value in my life. I've been living through Jonathan, through this family, through labels and names and things that don't really matter. Watching you last night, seeing your work, hearing your story, I realized how small I've been, how small I've made myself, and how I've tried to make you small to match. I'm sorry. I know those words aren't enough, but they're all I have. I'm going to be better. I'm going to do better. And if you never speak to me again, I'll understand. But please know that you inspired something in me last night. You reminded me that I could be more than someone's wife, someone's daughter-in-law. Maybe it's not too late for me to figure out who Vivian actually is, beyond the designer clothes and the family name. Thank you for that, and congratulations on your success. You earned every bit of it." Vivian, I read the message 3 times. Marcus read it over my shoulder. "What are you going to do?" He asked. "I don't know yet," I admitted. Part of me wants to ignore it. Part of me wants to believe people can change. "They can," he said softly, "if they really want to." December 2024, 30 or 33. The weeks following Thanksgiving were surreal. The Vogue feature exploded online. My website crashed from traffic. I had to hire 3 more seamstresses and rent additional studio space. Orders were coming in faster than I could fulfill them. But more interesting than the business success was the family dynamic. Patricia did take me to lunch on December 5th at a quiet restaurant in Manhattan. We talked for 3 hours. She apologized, really apologized, and told me about her own mother-in-law who'd made her feel inadequate for years. "I swore I'd never do that," she said sadly. But somehow I did. "I'm sorry, Celestine, truly. We weren't best friends by the end of that lunch, but we had a foundation. A real one built on honesty and mutual respect. Margot became one of my best friends. She came to the studio weekly, brought coffee, asked intelligent questions about my designs, and modeled pieces for social media. She even invested in the company, becoming a silent partner who genuinely believed in the vision. Jonathan sent a brief but sincere apology. We weren't close, but the hostility was gone, and Vivian? She asked to meet on December 18th. I almost said no, but curiosity won out. We met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, neutral territory. She looked different, less made up, more real. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, not the designer armor I was used to seeing. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure I would either," I admitted. She told me she'd started therapy, that she was trying to figure out who she was beyond Mrs. Jonathan Hartwell, that she'd enrolled in classes at the new school, photography, something she'd loved before responsibilities and expectations took over. "I don't expect us to be friends," she said, "but I hope maybe we can be civil. And I want you to know I'm going to be better. To you, to other women, to myself. Therapy is a good start," I told her. "And for what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. Everyone deserves to know who they are without someone else's expectations." It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. We didn't hug and cry and become sisters. But it was honest, and that felt like enough. February 2025 New York Fashion Week in February 2025 was everything I'd dreamed of. My collection debuted to standing ovations. The emerald dress, the one that started it all, closed the show, worn by a model who walked with the same determination I'd felt walking into that Thanksgiving dinner. Marcus sat front row, tears streaming down his face. Next to him, surprisingly, was Patricia. And Margot. and even Vivian, who'd asked if she could come and take photos. The Hartwells, for better or worse, had become my family. Not because I'd married into it, but because we'd chosen each other, this time with eyes wide open and respect in place. After the show, as I stood backstage, surrounded by congratulations and champagne, a reporter asked me what success meant to me. I thought about that girl from Queens, working 3 jobs, dreaming of this moment. I thought about the woman who walked into that Thanksgiving dinner wearing her armor, ready for battle. I thought about all the small moments of doubt, of fear, of wondering if I'd ever be enough. Success, I said slowly, is knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone convince you otherwise. It's looking in the mirror and recognizing the person you see. It's building something with your own hands and owning it, completely and unapologetically. Success isn't about proving other people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Epilogue. It's been almost a year since that Thanksgiving dinner. A lot has changed. Essence by Celestine now has 7 boutiques across the country and a flagship store opening in Manhattan next month. I've dressed 3 celebrities for major awards shows. I've been featured in every major fashion publication. I have a waiting list that's months long. But the real victory isn't in the accolades or the sales numbers or the recognition. It's in the freedom. I'm free to be exactly who I am. Free to walk into any room, family dinner, or fashion show and own my space. Free to create without apology, to succeed without permission, to exist without constantly defending my worth. The Hartwell family gatherings are different now. Christmas 2024 was actually pleasant. Easter 2025 is coming up, and I'm not dreading it. Patricia asks about my designs with genuine interest. Margot is my closest confidant. Jonathan is cordial, sometimes even warm. And Vivian? She's different, too. Her Instagram used to be all designer labels and status symbols. Now it's photography, beautiful, emotional work that shows real talent. She's finding her voice, her own story to tell. We're not best friends, but we can be in the same room without tension. Sometimes we even have real conversations. Last week, she asked if I'd look at some of her photographs. I'm thinking about doing an exhibition, she said nervously. But I don't know if they're good enough. Good enough for whom? I asked, echoing the question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. She smiled, understanding. You're right. I need to stop asking that question. You do, I confirmed. Create for yourself first. The rest will follow. It was a full circle moment. Me, giving advice to the woman who'd spent years tearing me down. But that's the thing about growth. It's not always linear, and it's not always fair, but it's always possible. The real lesson people ask me all the time what I learned from that experience. They want the neat packaged lesson that ties everything together with a bow. Here's what I tell them. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Read that again. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. For years, I let the Hartwell family's perception of me shape how I saw myself. I let Vivian's comments make me feel small. I let Patricia's dismissiveness make me doubt my place. I let their standards become my measuring stick. And I was always going to fall short because I was measuring myself against the wrong things. The dress, that emerald dress that became the catalyst for everything, wasn't just fabric and thread. It was a declaration. It was me saying, this is who I am. This is what I've built. This is my story, and it's beautiful exactly as it is. You don't need anyone's permission to be great. You don't need validation from people who've never taken the time to understand you. You don't need to fit into boxes that were never meant for you in the first place. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting the people who hurt you. It's about becoming so undeniably yourself that their opinions become irrelevant. It's about succeeding so loudly that the whispers don't matter anymore. That Thanksgiving dinner could have broken me. Instead, it freed me. Because the truth is, I could have told them about my success at any point. I could have shown up to every family gathering with magazines and press clippings, proving my worth. But I didn't need to. I was building something real, something mine, something that didn't require their approval to exist. The sweet revenge wasn't in their shock when they found out. It was in knowing that their shock didn't change anything about what I'd already accomplished. With or without their acceptance, I was still Celestine Hartwell, fashion designer, businesswoman, success story. Looking forward, Marcus and I are talking about starting a family soon. I used to worry about bringing children into the Hartwell dynamics, but now I'm not scared. If anything, I'm excited to raise kids who see their mother owning her power, who watch their father support his wife's dreams, who grow up in a family that's learned, slowly, imperfectly, what real respect looks like. I'm also launching a scholarship program through Essence by Celestine. It's for young designers from underprivileged backgrounds, kids like me who have talent and drive but not resources or connections. The first cohort starts in September 2025. We're funding 5 full scholarships to fit, plus mentorship, materials, and real-world experience in my studios. Because that's the other thing I learned. Success means nothing if you're not pulling others up with you. I didn't break through that glass ceiling just to enjoy the view. I broke through it to show others it could be done, and to help them climb through after me. The fashion world is brutal. It's exclusive, it's expensive, it's built on systems that favor people who already have advantages. But it's also beautiful, creative, and transformative. And it needs voices from everywhere. From Queens and Charleston, from privilege and poverty, from traditional paths and unconventional journeys. Every piece I design now carries that mission. I'm not just making clothes. I'm making statements. I'm making space. I'm making it possible for the next girl from a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens to see herself in this industry and think, maybe I could do that too. Final thoughts. So that's my story. The story of how one family dinner changed everything. The story of how mockery became motivation, how criticism became clarity, how not good enough became more than enough. But here's what I really want you to take away from this. To every woman who's been made to feel small, you're not. You're exactly the size you're meant to be, taking up exactly the space you deserve. Don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. To every person who's been judged for their background, where you come from doesn't determine where you're going. Your past is your foundation, not your ceiling. To everyone who's had their work dismissed or diminished, keep creating. Your art, your business, your dreams, they're valid whether or not anyone else sees it yet. Create for yourself first. The world will catch up. To anyone in a family or relationship where they don't feel valued, you deserve better. And sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply refusing to accept less than you deserve. Set boundaries, demand respect, and if they can't rise to meet you, you're allowed to walk away. And to everyone who's ever doubted themselves, I see you. I was you. I still am you on hard days. But I'm also the version of you who made it through, who built something beautiful from the ashes of doubt, who learned that the only permission you need is your own. That emerald dress hangs in my studio now, behind glass, lit from above. It's the first piece people see when they walk in. It's not for sale, it never will be. It's a reminder of who I was, who I became, and who I'm still becoming. Sometimes clients ask about it, about the story behind it. I tell them a shortened version usually, but every time I look at it, I remember that Thanksgiving dinner in complete detail. The whispers, the mockery, the moment everything shifted, and I smile. Because the girl who walked into that dinner wearing armor walked out wearing a crown. Not one that was given to her, one she'd forged herself, stitch by stitch, dream by dream, late night by late night. Closing message. That family dinner happened on November 28th, 2024. Today, as I'm sharing this story, it's November 2025. 1 year later, and sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. The Hartwells are having Thanksgiving again this year. I'm going, and I'm not nervous. I'm wearing a new design, a deep burgundy piece with gold accents that I finished last week. It's stunning, and I know it. More importantly, I don't need anyone else to know it for it to be true. Vivian texted me yesterday. Looking forward to seeing you Thursday. And whatever gorgeous thing you're wearing, progress. Imperfect, sometimes uncomfortable, but real. That's life, isn't it? Not a fairy tale, not perfect revenge where everyone gets what they deserve and learns their lesson and lives happily ever after. Just real people doing their best, growing slowly, making mistakes, trying again. I'm Celestine Hartwell. I'm from Queens. I'm a fashion designer. I'm a wife, a future mother, a business owner, a daughter, a sister-in-law, a woman who learned to take up space. And that emerald dress? It's still the most beautiful thing I've ever created. Not because of the fabric or the stitching or the press it received, but because it represents the moment I chose myself. And that choice, that one decision to walk into that room as exactly who I was, wearing exactly what I'd created, ready to own my truth, that changed everything. So here's my advice, from someone who's been there. Wear the damn dress. Create the thing. Start the business. Tell your story. Take up space. Be unapologetically yourself. Unapologetically yourself. Because revenge isn't about making others feel small. It's about becoming so entirely, authentically yourself that their opinions can't touch you anymore. That's the sweetest revenge of all.